The day I got out of prison, I had spent more than half my life inside. So it makes sense from time to time, despite my education, despite my college degree, I veer back into the slang that I used for so long, even though it doesn't really fit out here in the world. So in one video, I got a series of questions about what does this mean and what does that mean? I put them all together, and today's lesson is in prison slang. So the first one is old head. So when I went in, I remember it was like, yo, look out for that old head, or hey, make sure you talk to the old head. It's a guy who's been down for a long time. Generally, it's a sign of respect. Every now and then it can be like a creepy old head, like, yo, watch out for that old head. He's into messing with boys, or whatever the situation is. But generally, it's just a sign of, hey, this guy's been around for a long time. He knows the game. He knows the system. He's somebody you can turn to. Road dog. Now, the first time I heard that, I was like, yo, who's your road dog? And I was like, man, I like dogs. Like, what do you mean? It's what you can imagine. It's a person you've done time with. It's a person you trust, a person you go through with, a person you know is going to be by your side. Just like that loyal and trusty dog, no matter what goes down, you know your road dog's going to be there. You can use it as a positive, and it's almost always used as a positive, but if you said, yo, I thought you was my road dog, and then you drop me, well, you're basically saying, I thought you had my back, and you didn't. We have a kite. I remember the first time I heard kite, I was like, I fly kites. Like, I haven't flown a kite since I was 3. But a kite is something you're sending in. There are 2 different ways this can be. Sometimes it's just a request form. So like the official paper you send in to the counselor, or you send in to medical, or you send in to wherever, and you fill that out, you drop it in, and be like, yo, I sent a kite to the counselor asking this. It can also be a note or communication of another sort, like not a legitimate one. So if somebody's back in the hole and I'm in population, I'm not allowed to talk to them. I'm not allowed to send them anything, but there are ways to do it. You can use staff, you can use workers, you can use whatever. So you'd be like, yo, I sent John a kite because I'm trying to find out what happened to his boots when he got locked up. So if he got locked up out of population and put in shoe, put in the hole, I want to know what happened to his boots. So I send him a kite. I'll pay somebody a couple soups to take it back there. I'll figure out a way to go through laundry, whatever the case may be. But a kite just means a method of communication. Now, roll up. Same thing. I mean, I had smoked roll up on the street, so this wasn't that far from it. But in prison, cigarettes are expensive. You go in there, you're making 27 cents an hour, and a can of tobacco costs $5, but a pack of cigarettes costs $5. Well, you're gonna buy the can because you're gonna basically be able to get a couple packs out of it. You're gonna get the equivalent of several packs of cigarettes. So you buy cans of tobacco or bags of tobacco, you buy rolling papers, and you make your own roll-ups. So that's what it would usually be, like, yo, I'll give you 3 roll-ups for that tray, or hey, I got a soup for 2 roll-ups, or whatever it was. You're just trying to get rolled up cigarettes. Now, sometimes they're rolled up real big and fat like real cigarettes, and sometimes they're rolled real pill thin. Now, when they banned tobacco in the system, roll-ups went from like normal-sized cigarettes or normal-sized joint-looking cigarettes to pin tiny things, and guys were getting $3 or $4 for them. Whereas again, before, originally a can of tobacco was like $4 or $5. Now the taxes went up under a federal thing. They went to $25 for a can of tobacco or for a bag of tobacco. But again, to go from that to $4 for a little tiny pin roll-up that you're gonna get hundreds of out of that bag, that's a pretty good ROI. So guys who hustled, guys who kept tobacco when it got banned, they made a fortune. Now, to that point, because they were expensive, Cadillacs were just real cigarettes. They were Marlboros, they were Newports, they were whatever brand was sold, so that was a day of celebration. Or that was a guy who ran a parlay, basically ran a gambling empire, so he had plenty of money, so he could smoke Cadillacs. Your average person in prison, like, even if they were doing okay, they were not smoking Cadillacs, they were smoking roll-ups, but maybe for their birthday, or maybe if they won a big bet, or whatever it was, they would buy a pack of Cadillacs and they would celebrate. And they'd sit there smoking their Newports or smoking their Marlboros and feeling like king of the world, even though all you're doing is just getting cancer in a fancier project. Canteen, commissary, and the store. Now, if you've been in the military, you know what canteen and commissary is. Some people know commissary from vending machines and different processes, but we always just called it the store. So commissary is run by Keefe Commissary. This is a private for-profit company that contracts with the prison, so they bring in all the stuff. They basically act as the store. But when I tell people that, like, oh, when you go to the store, like, what do you do? What shelf do you grab off? Do you bring a shopping cart? It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Basically, if I wanted to go to the store, I had to fill out a list. Remember those things you took your SOLs on, those bubble sheets with all the little numbers? You would get that. And you would have a commissary list that would have an item, would have a cost, and it would have an order number. So say I wanted 3 soups and it was 30 cents a soup, and it was 6036 was the number. So I'd go on my bubble sheet, I would put in 6036 in the big box, and I would put however many I wanted. Say I wanted 10 soups, I'd put that in the number box, and then all of a sudden I need to have $3 on my books. So I did that, and for my soap, and for my deodorant, and for my coffee, whatever I was ordering, whatever I had the money for, I go and I put that in the box, they take it down to commissary, they run it, and the next day or a couple days later, we get called down there. We carry our big commissary bags, these orange bags or these yellow bags that are mesh. We go down there and they start just sliding stuff out the window, assuming we had all the money. So you get all your stuff, you stick it in your commissary bag, and you carry it back. You get a receipt, just basically like you went to the store, but it's got an item thing where it says, okay, 6036, 10 number, cost $3. Okay, so you know how much it costs for each of your things, you know what you got, and the problem was they would run out of stuff and they wouldn't replace anything. So you would go down there and try to buy ramen noodles because that was the cheapest thing you could do that would fill your belly if you were going to be hungry at night. They'd run out of one type of ramen noodle and they wouldn't just give you a different type, you just wouldn't get any ramen noodles. You'd basically be hungry for a week. Or they'd run out of coffee, or they'd run out of oatmeal, or run out of whatever, and it was really frustrating because you didn't always know ahead of time. If you knew, you could order something different. But it's like going to a store and you pay them and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we don't actually have the thing you just bought. Now you do get your money back eventually, but it doesn't help because you can't just do this. We're going down there 3 times a month if we're lucky. And so if you miss, and you might have 2 weeks in between store days, that means you don't have anything to eat or any coffee to drink or any soap to wash your body with for 2 weeks. It's just not a convenient experience. Store box. So if you run out of that stuff, if you go to commissary and they don't have what you need, you end up going to the store box. And what this is an incarcerated guy, someone who's in prison who runs a store himself. So he has soaps and soups and ramen, whatever it is you're looking for, and he charges 2 for 1. That's one of the other lines. What does 2 for 1 mean? It means if he gives you 1 soup, you got to give him 2 back. So you're paying 100% interest. So that's how he makes his money. He said, man, if you want this bag of coffee bad enough, you'll be willing to give me 2 back because it's not like you can go down to commissary. It's not like you can go down to the store, so you're going to come to me. So the high ticket items were almost always 2 for 1 because he wanted to be able to make as much money as possible. Now, if you had multiple store boxes in the pod, obviously you would go to the one who would give you a better deal. So sometimes one guy would say, hey, he's 2 for 1, I'll give you 2 for 3, which doesn't actually mean you give him 2 for 3. He gives you 2 and you give him 3 back. Basically, so you're only paying 50% interest instead of 100% interest. Now, what's funny about this is guys will then go, I'll give you a better deal. I'll give you 3 for 5, which is I'll give you 3 and you give me 5 back. But if you do the math, you're actually paying more in interest, 3 for 5, than you are 2 for 3. But people aren't good at math. That's not why they go to prison. So sometimes store box men get customers by actually giving them a worse deal, but making it sound better. What is a shakedown? And what is a shake up? We'll just go with shakedown for now. So I remember the first time I was sitting in the pod and I heard, shake down! It's like, what's going on? I'm sitting in the jail, I don't know what's going on. All these officers come rushing in, they go tearing into the cells, they go tearing stuff apart. I'm talking about when they're done with the shakedown, nothing in your cell is recognizable. The bed is pulled off, or the mattress is pulled off the bed, the sheets are pulled off, your paperwork's all messed up, all your commissary is spread out, like everything is torn apart because they're looking for contraband, they're looking for weapons, they're looking for drugs, they're looking for whatever they're looking for, and they're not being cautious and careful about it, they're just gonna tear your stuff up. I'm talking about when they get done with shakedown, your cell just doesn't even look like a cell. It doesn't look like a place where people live, it looks like a tornado went through there. So you know when they call shakedown, you just go ahead and say, I hope I don't have anything fragile in there. I don't have anything that I need, or a drawing that I'm working on, or a letter I'm writing, because it is going to get torn to pieces. Because shakedown is not a delicate proceeding. What does it mean to check in? Well, out here, I run a job. I'm an administrator. I'll say, hey, I just want to check in with my facilitators, want to check in, see how things are doing. But in prison, checking in is not a good thing. Checking in means you went to the hole or you asked for protective custody because you were scared. So maybe you owed money. You owed the store box man 5 bags of coffee and you didn't have it, so you checked in so the store box man wouldn't whoop your ass. Or you made a bet and you couldn't pay your bet, or you told on somebody. Whatever the case may be, you went to the administration, you went to the staff and said, hey, I need to get off the yard, so-and-so is trying to hurt me, or I owe so-and-so money, I need to check in. And that's literally what it would say. It's funny because every now and then you get these watch commanders or the shift commander for security who would put something on the door like no check-ins, basically like, yo, I'm not putting you in the hole, like deal with your own stuff. And Virginia was not nearly as terrible as some places where you see the predatory behavior, you see people being taken advantage of, being assaulted, being whatever. That does happen, but not to the same degree. So generally what they were saying is like, yo, don't run a bill up you can't pay and then come try to get me to save you. If somebody had gone there and be like, yo, dude is trying to take my butt, they probably would have let him go in there. But when it's people just basically trying to run up debts or run up problems and then get away from them, they didn't want to be involved in it any more than we did. We knew that guy was untrustworthy. They knew that guy was untrustworthy. Nobody really wanted him around because he just made it harder on everyone. What is count time? Well, count time is when they walk in the pod, they blow the whistle, they say, bottom tier, stand for count, count time, on your feet. Hear that 5 times a day, every single day for 19 years. It's not a fun experience. But what it is they're going around the facility to make sure that everyone is there. They're basically doing a head count of everybody in the facility and making sure the numbers add up. So if it says they have 1,000 people, they're going to go to every pod, they're going to go to every working area, every classroom, everywhere, and make sure they have 1,000 people in person. They check the head count, they check it at the prison, they send it to Richmond, they check it, and then count clears and you come back out of your cell or back out of wherever you're locked. But it's a period where you're not moving between places because, again, they're making sure no one has escaped, they're making sure nobody's stuffed under a bunk, they're making sure everything is okay, everything is copacetic. So count time is the most common and in many cases the most annoying thing, but every now and then I would use it as a time to meditate or as a time to read or as a time to write. Like I knew when 3:30 came around or 4 came around, depending on which prison I was at, I could wait, stand for count, and then go sit on my bunk and stare at the wall and meditate because they were not going to clear count for 30 minutes or for 40 minutes. So I had time. I didn't have to worry about anybody bothering me or I didn't have to worry about going to work or doing anything else. Now, what is a charge? People be like, yo, I ain't trying to get a charge. Well, in prison, you get charges just like on the street you get charges. It's basically a new crime, except it doesn't go in front of court on the street. It goes in front of what we called kangaroo court in the prison. So you have disciplinary infractions. You had 100 series and 200 series. 100 series was the more serious, like stabbing, killing, escaping, whatever. Those were the 100 series charges. They were considered far more serious, and you would get more hold time, or you would get a log time, you'd get shipped. There were more serious consequences. 200 series could be as simple as like not standing for count, or it could be disobeying an order. It could be, not having your shirt properly fashioned. It could be something really petty. So 200 series were not as serious, but you knew you could get a charge. And it's crazy because I saw somebody punch somebody else right in front of the cops and not get a charge, but I would see other times where a guy was like cutting his own hair and the officer wrote him a charge for violation of written procedure, policy and procedure. And it's like, bro, like they're trying to get people from not cutting other people's hair because they're worried about disease. Why do you care if this guy cuts his own hair? Like this does not make any sense, but he got a charge. So when you get that charge, you have to go in front of court and you get what are called inmate advisors. They have a new name now because the DOC doesn't use inmate anymore, at least here in Virginia. But an inmate advisor is basically your lawyer. So you'd go down there, you'd have to talk to the hearings officer, and they would say, how do you plead? And you could plead guilty, you'd plead not guilty, you could try to talk about the evidence. Your inmate advisor would give you a technicality or tell you to say this, this, or this. But the reality was, it did not matter what you did. Like, they were either going to find you guilty or find you not guilty. It was not a fair proceeding. This person did not go to law school. They did not have a good understanding of what the law said or what an impartial approach was. They were basically like, look, I'm going to find you guilty of this charge. Now, every now and then it would be really egregious, or every now and then somebody'd have enough pull with the administration, or had told on somebody, or paid somebody off, or had dirt on somebody, and they'd be able to get them to dismiss the charge. But for the most part, if you got charged with something, even if it was entirely bogus, you were going to get convicted. That means, like I said, you might be banned from going to commissary for 30 days, or might not be able to use a phone for 30 days, or you might go to the hole, or you might be on cell restriction, which is where you're still in your pod and you're allowed to go to chow, but you're not allowed to go anywhere else. Basically, you're allowed to go to chow, and I think you get 15 minutes for a shower once a day, but if you're outside of your cell for any other reason, they're going to lock you up, they're going to put you in the hole and write you an additional charge. So charge is basically just like a new crime or new whatever, and the kangaroo court you went to, the inmate advisor, the hearings advisor, those are the people you went to for your court hearing. Do not advise it. It's not like the People's Court. It's not fair. It's not even entertaining. Every now and then you get a good inmate advisor. You might try to kind of slip some stuff in, but for the most part, you knew what was going to happen. It was not worth your time. So staying out of trouble, not getting charges, staying out of the way was the best way to do time in prison, because then you could at least be away from all the riffraff, all the drama. You wouldn't have to be worrying about going to the hole or losing your phone calls or losing your visits. You could just do your time. You could read. You could work out. You could try to make the best of the situation you were in without all the distractions and all the barriers in place. I didn't think so, but we have one more. So what is a banger, what is a shank, or what is steal? I remember I had somebody steal from me at the first major prison I was at. I went into my cell, I was coming back in from rec, and my stuff was torn up, and I was like, bro. So I went to a guy I knew in the pod. He was an old head, he'd been there for a while. I was like, bro, somebody stole from me. And he said, all right, I got you. So he went off, he got a couple guys, and I saw one of them go back to his cell. He comes back, and he's holding his arm like this. He's got something clearly in his hand. He's like, yo, you want steel? I was like, I'm thinking steel wool. Like, we use steel wool to make stingers, or ways we boiled water. And then I realized, he was trying to give me a knife. He was trying to give me a knife to go stab this guy who had stolen from me. I'm glad I didn't take it, because the person I thought who stole from me, the person basically didn't actually do it. Somebody else set him up to take the fall to try to get me to jump on him or get me to stab him up. Well, he was also gang related, so I'm really lucky that I didn't stab him, because one, he wasn't the guy who stole from me, and two, his guys would have got me. Like, I only had somebody protect me when all his homeboys came back in the pod, and they tried to jump me. I had somebody get in between, and then the cops came in. That's the only thing to save me. And then the fact that he actually told on his own guys, and he had stolen from their kitty or from their pod. Like, he just ended up not being a good guy, so it worked out. Like, I feel bad because I was in the wrong for jumping on him, for attacking him, because I thought he had stolen from me. I got tricked by somebody else. I got tricked by one of the guys who actually had stolen from me. And that was when I realized, you know what? Knives are not for me. Even that day, I knew I had almost killed people in the shooting. I had almost hurt people past the point of recognition, past any getting back. I didn't ever want to do that again. So that day, if it meant I was going to get jumped and I was going to get the shit beat out of me, I was willing to wear that, because I would rather do that than take somebody else's life or permanently injure somebody, because I already come damn close to doing that.